Yeah, I said I was planning on doing a series of videos about stuff related to Star Wars, and I decided to start with, I've been doing Star Trek stuff of TV show episodes, so hey, look, TV show episodes. Kind of, sort of. I could do something related to this. Um, but I decided to take a slightly different take on this one because there's a lot of people who do critiques of the actual plot, and I'm going to look at this more from a TTRPG standpoint. It's like, what did the people writing this go for, and what could you do instead when you're actually trying to do something similar in a TTRPG? Because let's face it, Star Wars does actually have role-playing games based on it, and there's enough people who are Star Wars fans that you're going to find people doing that. So, why not, eh? Alright, so let's go on with this. Obviously, here we have what is probably written as the single center point of the entire thing. The May/Osha character. Which is a complicated idea and something that is in many ways rather bizarre. Because artificially created using force magic, this process somehow turned into what were identical twins. However, identical twins that are somehow permanently linked to each other via the force. Now, personally, watching that in early episodes, I started to suspect that the idea they were going with is that because of the fact that they're linked like that, they're subconsciously acting as opposites to each other. And yet, at the same time, because of the fact that they're acting as opposites to each other, they would be subconsciously aware of what the other was doing and feeling. It was my guess, anyways. Turns out that's actually not what the writers were going with. I'm genuinely not sure what the writers were going with. Different episodes seem to portray them as little more than identical twins. It's just that identical twins who supposedly have an identical ability to use the Force, yet one of them actually doesn't do it very much. Yeah, it's weird. Also, the whole thing is like having not seen each other for 16 years and wearing the same exact hairstyle. Heh. Now, well, that is actually one of those things that you could write in as a tell that they're subconsciously influencing each other, that their methods of dressing and acting are not solely their own choices, and that they're subconsciously doing what the other wants or likes or something. That's not actually something they wrote in as a plot point, though. It would have made sense to me, but that's not what they did with it. Yeah, if you wanted to do that in, yes, that would actually make this thing so much better. Having the two of them subconsciously influencing each other due to being, like a single split entity, because that's actually something they say, is that the two of them are functionally a single person with two physical bodies and apparently two different personalities. That's not particularly well developed, though, because the two of them seemingly have different goals and motives. However, those goals and motives seem to swap places. And that was actually one of the things that I was kind of sort of pondering, is that maybe the whole like goals and motives swapping places is because the fact that they're they have a form of indecision that's caused by the mirror shifting. It's like each of the one of them is the good twin, one of them is the bad twin, and that doesn't necessarily stay the same. Sometimes those roles reverse, which causes their personalities to change. Thing is, the series doesn't actually go with that. But that's something that you could go with if you're actually trying to write this in a TTRPG. Anyways, let's move on. So this place is something that they go to in some of the episodes. Because, again, there's multiple locations that they jump to. A relatively small number, mind you, but there's still, I think 5 total. I think it was 5, yeah. And yeah, so here we have Coruscant, which this is the inside of a Jedi Academy where young wannabe Jedi are learning the ways of the Force, blah, blah, blah. Here we have a group of Jedi who are going to Brindok to try and figure out... Actually, no. This particular scene is on the planet that the Wookiee went to. Kashyyyk, I think it was. Oh, never mind. I don't think I can record that. Anyway, here we have the inside of the mining facility on Brindok after it has been repurposed into a base of operations by Anastasia and her coven. They do actually state that there's a total of 56 members of the coven, which is enough for a small town. And all of them are living inside this mining facility. Well, inside or outside, see, because like there is an above ground surface air component to the mining facility, so they don't all live like underground in the mine. Some of them are like buildings that are on the surface attached to the mine. Now, as for why the mining facility is abandoned, that's very, very poorly explained. They barely mention it at all. In fact, when they introduce the location, they don't tell you what it is. That's actually something you could have easily just like thrown in as like one-liner in dialogue. It's like, we're here, this is why, and so on. Because again, like you have this scene where you have these two small children. I think they said they're 8 in that scene. And one of them is doing this thing where she somehow leaves the mining facility and is wandering around in the forest outside, because apparently this is where she always goes when she wants to be alone and ponder her things and her thoughts. And that means it's easy for people to find her when she's off in the forest alone, because she always goes to the same place. Okay. But, you know, that was a great scene to talk about where they are and why they're there, and why living inside a mine is safer than being on the surface, because they don't actually explain that. That's actually something that they really, really don't go into. They kind of sort of cryptically drop that they're hiding from the Jedi, but that's not a very good way to hide from the Jedi, so not explained. Anyway, this is the planet where the Wookiee Kalnaka, who is a Jedi, went to when he decided he wanted to go into seclusion. They never explain why he went into seclusion or what he was doing in seclusion. The only hint we have is that he has these weird patterns like this drawn on the inside of his hut. That's literally the only thing we find out, because Kalnaka's dead when we find him in his hut, and we never get any explanation for what he was doing on that planet or why. Which is a shame, because it's an interesting location. It's like a generally foggy planet with some extreme vegetation. Okay, so here's some promo stills that they did for the show that I decided to use because, well, while the character positioning has nothing to do with any of the episodes of the show, at least not in this order anyways. This one, the first one, is actually a reference to something that happens in the finale of the series, and it uses a location from the beginning, but characters from the finale? I don't get that. Doesn't make sense. Whatever. So, the yellow tree is something special that exists on Brindok. It's not explained if it's a unique plant or that was created as part of the whole like resurgence of life on Brindok or not. But this here scene depicts the landscape of Brindok. Now, that brings up an interesting point. They explain that the reason why the Jedi went to Brindok is because of the fact that the planet had all life on it wiped out due to a hyperspace disaster. This show does not, at any point in time, explain what said hyperspace disaster was, or how the hyperspace disaster wiped out all life on the planet. Because, as we find out, said hyperspace disaster, which you have to read a series of books to find out, books which aren't technically canon, as far as I know. Or they're as much canon as the old extended universe used to be. Yeah. Anyway, in those books, there's an incident where two ships collide in hyperspace, one of which was a rather large ship. Said ship breaks apart in hyperspace, and its pieces exit hyperspace at various seemingly random points in the general direction the ship was moving in. Which actually tells us the location of Brindok, because if Brindok was involved in this hyperspace disaster, there's a straight line from the point of the disaster to Brindok's location. And we know at least one of the planet names that was involved in the disaster. Anyways, though, they don't explain how that wiped out all life on the planet, though. But one of the plot points involving said hyperspace disaster was a agricultural moon that had been heavily farmed and was being used to produce food for the Republic, was being threatened by having a piece of debris from this ship that got destroyed. And the characters in that story had to save the moon from having one of these pieces of debris smash into it. The story doesn't actually say exactly how big the devastation would have been, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you say it wiped out all life on the planet? That's like a one-liner that's not explained at all. Anyways, moving on. So, this is an interesting shot because to my knowledge, it's like a brief glimpse of this in the show, so brief that it's hard to even get a picture of it. Here we have two of the Jedi, here we have the twins, and we have Mother Anasiah. And here we have the burning remains of that mining base that they were living in. Why was the mining base built in a mountaintop like this? Good question. We don't know what they were mining. At no point in time does anything even talk about why there's a mining base here. Presumably, the mining base was abandoned because of the disaster that affected the planet and allegedly wiped out all life on the planet. And thus, the location of the mining base is why the witches are here, I guess. Thing is, like I said, there's a lot of things in this that really aren't well explained, and that's actually one of those things that I would expect someone doing a TTRPG to do a better job with, because you're going to have your players ask, "What's that? Why is that?" incessantly, because players are curious and they want to know things. Like, why was there a mining base here? Because, see, that's actually an interesting plot point, is that if you're sneaking into a mining base and you can, say, find a mine shaft that opens to the surface someplace outside the compound that the witches live in, you could maybe, sneak in using a tunnel that the witches don't use, and use that as a way to get in without being seen instead of climbing over the mountain. Yes, really. They had Jedi do that 3 times. Does this make sense to me? No. But it's what they did. It is actually the sort of try-hard thing that players in a TTRPG might do. You're like, oh, the door's locked. Well, let's see here. I'll climb over the mountain and see if I can climb in through the roof. A player in a TTRPG would totally do that. Well. Anyway, here, this is... I think this is that planet that the Wookiee went to. Kashyyyk? I think the name was Kashyyyk. I'll have to double check that. Here we have Vernestra, who is, in the present day, relative to the Acolyte parts of this, one of the head Jedi, and the one who is handling this case. Here we have a, not a Wookiee, but it's still a furry humanoid, who, his ability is that he is very good as a tracker because he has a superhuman sense of smell. So, living or sentient bloodhound thing. Problem is, like Wookiees, he can't speak standard. So he does weird animal grunting noises that some people can understand. Some people. Thing is, here's the thing. He's a sentient humanoid, and one thing that Star Wars didn't do in the original Star Wars, but made clear was a possibility, is they usually had someone like C-3PO or Han Solo to explain to everyone what Chewbacca was saying. And of course, there's the fact that the whole bunch of people just understood what Chewbacca was saying, even if the viewers didn't. The viewers could get the meaning of it by getting context clues from what the others around him were doing and saying. In this, Basil is not written that way. When Basil is talking, he's usually doing it by himself when there's no one else around. So, and they don't subtitle it. If they'd subtitle it, the character would be so much more interesting because of the fact that the viewers don't know what he's saying. There is no way for viewers to figure out what the heck the beaver person is actually up to. What his motives are, what his goals are, how he thinks and feels. We have no idea other than a few vague body language hints that are hard to make out due to the fact that the character model, while reasonably detailed, has rather stilted CGI animations. It doesn't have this level of detail in the CGI animations you need to properly convey emotion. Somehow, Mechagodzilla in Tokyo SOS had a better ability to emote than Basil does. And that movie came out over a decade ago. And it's a metal robot. How does that emote better? Anyways. Oh, also we have Master Soul and Kimir. Actually, Kimir's an alias. We don't really know what his name is, and his official name in the credits is apparently the Stranger. Gee, I wonder why that's being kept secret. The showrunner said that she really, really wanted to get a season 2 so that she could continue the story, and that most of Kamir's story was actually planned for season 2. Oh boy. Well, Kamir is one of the characters that doesn't get killed off, and they kill off most of the characters in this. So, yeah, that's a thing. Oh, also, this has a whole bunch of Jedi uh, of multiple ranks, like Jedi Masters, Jedi Knights, Jedi Padawans, younglings even, completely unnamed. Some of which get killed off and still don't have names. Yeah, that's a thing I'll have to get into in a later episode. Ugh. It's one of those things where it's like describing a scene of people fighting in a forest and having like lightsabers like cut down the trees and stuff. Cool idea. Really is a cool idea. It's like, like you're going at someone, he's up against a tree, you swing the lightsaber, he dodges out of the way at the last moment, the lightsaber blade goes through the tree trunk. I mean, it's a great thing to have for a TTRPG moment. The the way it's acted out in this, though, oy. It's one of those things that it's like the difference between having a good way of describing everything you're doing and not. It's like a clumsy description of I'm doing this versus actually having a carefully thought out thing you're going to do. Anyway, here we have a nice view of the forest on, I'm calling it Kashyyyk because I don't actually remember for certain what its name is. I think that's the right name for it. And here we have the stranger / Kamir, but and Osha and May. Here we have the group of Jedi that get killed in episode 5. We see them here as they're wandering off into the forest looking for Kelnaka, who we find out was killed by Kamir. Off screen. To be honest, having that be a surprise plot point in a TTRPG actually works. Especially if your party is told, like, hey, you need to get there and hurry or something. And you have the a party is going through the woods trying to find the person they're looking for, and they get there and find that he's already dead. Like, oh no! In here, there's no real sense that they actually got delayed or anything. They just, didn't get there fast enough somehow. That's actually one of those things that's kind of strange, because the fact that May, who is traveling with Kamir, who is actually the guy who kills Kalnaka, gets surprised by the fact that Kamir, who is traveling with her, somehow killed Kalnaka without her noticing it. Yeah, that got strange. But, I mean, that is the sort of thing you could actually use as a surprise plot twist in a story like this, though. It actually kind of does work. Here we have yet another scene with the golden tree, shown from a different angle, and also we have on the left what is apparently Kamir, and on the right the group of 4 Jedi who went to Brendok to figure out why Brendok is suddenly alive again. And this is the scene where the 2 girls are playing under the tree and talking about how they're 2 parts of the same person or something. Why they had a scene with them talking about that was apparently thrown in solely as foreshadowing for the later thing of the reveal that they're actually kind of sort of the same person. Kind of, sort of. Oh boy. That made the ending super strange because the fact that in the end, you see here, you have Kamir and Osha. May isn't in this picture. Why is May not here? Oh yeah, that's right. Because Osha left May behind so that the Jedi could take her to prison. Yeah. May, the one who was actually trained as a Sith acolyte, gets mind wiped and left behind to go to uh, Jedi prison or something. We don't really find out what the Jedi are going to do with her. Should they? All we find out is that Vernestra is going to attempt to get information out of her somehow. We don't find out how. And yeah, overall, there's a lot of weird stuff in here. And you could do something with it. I would definitely not try to use it as is, though. But there is certainly things you could do with it. Why on earth they decided to make this series of pictures have a lunar eclipse when it's not even pictures of the same planet? I have no idea. Okay, it's probably meant to be a metaphor for Osha going from trying to be a Jedi to trying to be a Sith, but it doesn't really work very well for me. Especially since they start with the ending of the series, not the beginning of the series. Like, seriously. This does not follow a logical order. Anyway, though, yeah, I'm going to do more episodes on this. I wasn't at first certain how exactly I was going to structure them, but I think I'm going to go over the individual plot beats of the separate episodes one at a time, and then look at specific aspects of things, because one of the flaws with this is that it needs to do a lot of world building in order for the viewers to understand what the heck is going on, because it introduces a whole bunch of characters that viewers can't look up on Wikipedia in order to get backstories for, because they're brand new characters. But it doesn't actually give them backstories on screen. Kind of a problem. But in a TTRPG, that is exactly what you need to do, because players are going to want to know stuff like that. Anyways, that's it for this one. I'm definitely going to have to do more of these later. See you later.